Part 125. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 1241. Chapter 1241. Nangongyu is not my daughter. Gongqin Li, Zhonyun looked at her daughter's wounds and suddenly hated Gongqin Li extremely. Gongqin Li took a dagger and drove the mother and daughter out. I said, if anyone hurts my daughter, I will never let her have an easy time. Crazy, you are really crazy. Zhonyun and Zhonmu almost hated her, but due to Gongqin Li's incredible strength, they didn't dare to fight her. With Nangong Luahu by Gongqin Li's side, they were even more helpless against Gongqin Li. Mrs. Nangong dealt with it and asked Zhonyun to quickly take Nangongyu to bandage the wound. Actually, Gongqin Li was just venting his anger and did not really act cruelly. The cut was made and a little blood flowed, but this was nothing compared to the damage Xiao Yuer suffered. When Zhonyun held her daughter to stop the bleeding, Zhong's mother and Mrs. Nangong followed behind. Only Nangong Luo stayed. Gongqin Li's tone was unkind. Why, I hurt your precious daughter, and you don't feel bad at all? Or are you staying here and waiting to settle accounts with me? She is not my daughter. It's really ridiculous. Gongqin Li knew Nangong Luo's most personal attitude, but how could she believe what Nangong Luo suddenly said? However, Nangong Luo's expression was serious and he really planned to have a showdown with Gongqin Li. Lu Li, this matter is not what you think. That's enough, Nangong Luo. Everything happened because of you. If it weren't for you, Zhonyun wouldn't have been pestering me all the time. It's because you can't educate your own daughter well that Nangongyu is so arrogant and domineering. You hurt my Yuer. Get out. Gongqin Li interrupted him ruthlessly, pointed at the door and chased him away. No one present could understand her mood at that time, almost her whole heart was about to jump out of fear. She simply couldn't imagine that if her daughter couldn't wake up, would she go crazy? With Nangong's family? You'd better take care of your wife and daughter, otherwise I'll beat you once I see you. You know my character, I do what I say. Gongqin Li's heart was full of anger. Nangong Luo waited quietly for her to finish venting, not annoyed at all. He could no longer bear to tell her the truth. Lu Li, actually Nangongyu is. But at the most critical moment, Xiao Yuer slowly opened her eyes on the hospital bed and said in a weak voice, Mommy. Even though the sound was not clear, Gongqin Li still caught it. She was overjoyed to see Xiao Yuer wake up. Baby, you really scared Mommy. The fierceness just now was just a shell to protect herself. Now that she saw that her daughter was safe, she immediately threw away the spiked weapon, and she truly looked like a soft-hearted mother. She remembered the doctor's instructions and rang the bell to call the doctor when Xiao Yuer woke up, and did another checkup on Xiao Yuer. The doctor told her the good news among the misfortunes, and also reminded her, you may have a headache in the near future, so let the child get more rest. Thank you, doctor. After the doctor finished the examination, Gongqin Li hugged her daughter excitedly. She was so strong that she almost cried. Yuer, my baby, Mommy is really scared when she sees you lying there. Hearing the news that Xiao Yuer woke up, Zhonyun and others stood outside the door and took a look again. Mrs. Nangong bowed her hands and thanked God for blessing, this child finally woke up. She is awake, but our Yuer is still injured. The Zhone family will not just let this matter go. My mother-in-law, you will not let your granddaughter suffer in order to favor outsiders, right? One of the previous chapters has been blocked, and Kixi has not found the sensitive words yet. You may feel that a chapter is missing, and Kixi is working hard to revise it. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 1242. Chapter 1242. Uncle, don't make my mommy cry. She is awake, but our Yuer is still injured. The Zhone family will not just let this matter go. My mother-in-law, you will not let your granddaughter suffer in order to favor outsiders, right? Zhong Mu instigated Mrs. Nangong to stand up for Nangong Yu. Mrs. Nangong felt uncomfortable. You almost got into trouble, what do you want me to do? You didn't do it on purpose, but Gong Qinli relied on her family's power to do whatever she wanted. She attacked you in front of all of us. She was not provoking our Zhong family and Nangong family. That's what it sounds like. Mrs. Nangong stood at the door and looked inside quietly. I saw that Gong Qinli looked very different when she was holding her daughter and talking about her inner panic. Besides the forehead, are there any injuries? No. Don't scare mommy like this anymore. Even though Xiao Yu woke up, Gong Qinli's voice was trembling when talking about that matter. Xiao Yu hurt her head, but there was no pain elsewhere. So she hugged her mother back, even though her two little hands were too short to reach. She imitated an adult's comforting gesture and patted Gong Qinli's back gently. Mommy, don't cry. You is fine. The injured child in turn comforted the parents. It takes such a sensible child to have such a clear will. Even though Xiao Yu felt her head was dizzy and painful, she tried her best not to cry. Because she knew that if she cried, mommy would be even more sad. So she wanted to comfort her mother. Don't worry, mommy, you is very brave. Yes, you is the bravest and most obedient, so I have to promise mommy to take good care of herself in the future and never let mommy worry anymore. Xiao Yu reached out and hugged Gong Qinli to comfort her. Yes. Mother and daughter comforted each other. Nangong Luo patted Gong Qinli's shoulder with one hand. Lu Li, Xiao Yu needs to rest. As soon as Gong Qinli heard about her daughter, she reacted quickly. She wiped her tears casually and let go of her daughter. Okay, Yu, lie down and rest. Mommy will sleep next to you. Gong Qinli was about to help her daughter lie down, but Xiao Yu suddenly stared at Nangong Luo and shouted, Uncle. Gong Qinli's movements froze. Nangong Luo lowered his head and approached her and responded, Uncle is here. Yu is going to sleep. Uncle, can you help Yu look at mommy and stop her from crying? When Xiao Yu said these words, the whole scene was very quiet. No one expected that she would say such a thing. Such a child is so well behaved that it makes people feel distressed. Nangong Luo nodded solemnly and replied solemnly, Okay, Uncle will definitely do it. Thank you, Uncle. After explaining the matter, Xiao Yu closed her eyes and went to sleep peacefully. Gong Qinli covered her mouth tightly to hold back any sound, but her eyes were filled with tears. Suddenly, a finger gently wiped the corner of her eye, and Nangong Luo's voice came to her ears, You can't go back on your word when you promise your child. Mrs. Nangong closed the door in time. She was not at peace at the moment, having peeked at the whole process at the door. Originally she was very dissatisfied with Gong Qinli for hurting Nangong Yu, but now she felt extremely sorry for Xiao Yu who was lying on the hospital bed. Mrs. Nangong responded to Zhong Mu, It's not as serious as you said. That girl Li Yulai is just impatient and can't rub the sand in her eyes. The doctor didn't say it when she stopped the bleeding just now, or she broke the skin and started bleeding. My mother-in-law, why are you helping outsiders? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1243. Chapter 1243 Li Yulai trusts Nangong Luo very much. Let's talk about the matter. If the Nangong family pursues the case, Yu will definitely be blamed. Now that Gong Qinli has spoken out, she will not cause trouble for Yu in the future. You guys, you are just going too far. Your son ignored his own wife and daughter and instead protected outsiders. It's so arrogant to find a mistress. Mother Zhong couldn't help but yell. Mrs. Nangong is usually a very reasonable person, but if anything related to her son comes up, she will never let it go. Zhou Mu's words touched Mrs. Nangong's side. Mrs. Nangong glared coldly, "Don't scold my son. After all, Zhonyun is also responsible. Why did she take you to find Li Yulai? And you became so ignorant because of your blind indulgence." Zhonmu snorted, "What can a child know? You didn't mean it." Speaking of this, Mrs. Nangong felt even more speechless. A clear example is placed in front of them. Isn't it the difference between Xiao Yu and Nangong Yu? What do children know? You saw it yourself just now. Why is Xiao Yu so considerate and sensible? When it comes to youth, she is 1 month younger than you. Yu is your granddaughter. Who are you helping? Of course I am partial to Yu, but I also know what it means to be justified. Mrs. Nangong didn't want to argue with Mother Zhong anymore, so she turned and left. The debate ended in vain. Xiao Yu was injured, and as a mother, Gong Qinli stayed by her bedside all night long. And next to him there is Nangong Luo, who cannot be driven away no matter what. At first Gong Qinli criticized him a few words, but later she just pretended that he didn't exist. When it was almost dawn, Gong Qinli couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep lying on the edge of the bed. Nangong Luo took off his coat and put it on her body. The aura of a man enveloped her, but in Gong Qinli's subconscious mind, instead of rejecting it, she tightened her coat. Nangong Luo, who had been tense all night, finally smiled. The small gesture revealed Gong Qinli's true feelings for him. This discovery made him very surprised and felt happy both physically and mentally. I still remember that when I was abroad, there were many people pursuing Gong Qinli, and it was not uncommon to give gifts and show their attentiveness. Some people even wanted to take off their coats while she was sleeping to show their concern. However, the sensitive Gong Qinli suddenly woke up and waved her clothes away. She opened it, and even the boy standing nearby offering his coat was knocked to the ground by her. The scene was awkward for a while, and Gong Qinli was stunned for a while. She didn't react until other students helped her up and apologized again. He deliberately teased Gong Qinli about this matter, but Gong Qinli forcibly took off his coat and put it on herself, saying, "Do you know if a boy wants to take care of a girl?" At that time, Gong Qinli wrapped his coat and slept peacefully all afternoon. Later he realized that that was the so-called trust, because he could make her feel at ease. And now, he stood here guarding Gong Qinli and Gong Qinli's daughter, and suddenly felt a warm feeling like a family of three. This kind of feeling cannot be given by others. Caressing her cheek, he looked at the familiar face almost in a daze, and murmured to himself, "Lu Li, I really won't let go this time." Xiao Yu on the bed woke up at some point and opened her eyes. She looked at Nangong Luo with clear eyes and asked in a small voice, "Uncle, do you want to protect my mommy?" End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1244. Chapter 1244, after eating it, he turns his face and refuses to recognize anyone else. She looked at Nangong Luo with clear eyes and asked, "Uncle, do you want to protect my mommy?" Meeting. Nangong Luo's response was straightforward and affirmative. Xiao Yu had a faint smile on her face and seemed to be very happy about it. From the beginning to the end, she never knew that the person who wanted to bully her mother and the person who caused her harm was precisely because of Nangong Luo. Nangong Luo looked at the mother and daughter beside the bed, and his decision became even firmer. Gong Qinli woke up after taking a nap. She straightened up, and the coat she wore behind her slid down her back to the ground. She turned around and saw that the man's black coat undoubtedly belonged to Nangong Luo. Reaching out her hand to pick up the coat, the feeling in her hand made her feel very uncomfortable. He raised his head and glanced at his daughter, who was still sleeping with her eyes closed. She was sitting on the bedside, holding the coat in her hand in a daze. Should she not come back? Since returning to China, It seems that many things have started to go wrong. But what's wrong with her wanting to go home? Her roots are here, her relatives and friends are all here, in this huge city. She, Gongkin Li, doesn't need to bow down to anyone. Zhonyun, she doesn't owe Zhonyun anything. Gongkin Li quietly left the ward and made a phone call in the corner of the corridor. She didn't say much or ask much. She just left a quick warning, Zhonyun, I'm going to give you a warning. If you come to pester me again, I will take away whatever you are afraid of losing. Zhonyun almost vomited blood when she received the call. However, these are not within the scope of Gongkin Li's consideration. She returned to the ward to guard her daughter, but her stomach began to growl. He touched his stomach and sighed, I'm so hungry. She didn't want to tell her family about her daughter's injury, lest they worry, so she could only stay here by herself. It was absolutely impossible for her to leave her daughter alone in the ward. Just as I was about to turn on my phone and order a takeaway, the door to the ward was suddenly pushed open. I saw Nangang Luo, wearing a grey singlet, walking in from the door with a bag in both hands. Nangang Luo put the things in his hands on the table. Seeing that Gongkin Li was awake, he naturally called her to eat. I bought breakfast, so you can eat some when you wake up. No thanks. Gongkin Li refused simply. But the next second, her stomach growled and betrayed her easily. Gongkin Li gritted her teeth and glanced away, not daring to look. Nangang Luo sat on the stool and opened the fragrant food. The meat pie here tastes the same as before, it's really good. He praised it while eating. As the aroma spread, Gongkin Li took a sniff. This is crazy. This was her favorite meat pie. She clenched her fists and suddenly stood up. The menacing Chao Nangang Luo walked over, and then he picked up the food on the table and took a few quick bites. Ahem. Eating too quickly, retribution came and I choked. Nangang Luo quickly patted her back and handed her a glass of milk, still so careless. I want you to take care of it. Lu Li, are you trying to burn bridges across the river? After eating, you will turn your back on me and deny anyone else. It's not like I begged you to buy it. Yes, I forced you to eat it before I bought it. Hey, if I remember correctly, that store seems to be 10 kilometers away from this time. I remember correctly. Then you traveled so far just to buy her a breakfast that you once liked? Gongkin Li lowered her eyes and saw that Nangang Luo's fingernails were all black. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1245. Chapter 1245 Dressing him with my own hands. The temperature in City S was still relatively low in the morning, so she had to wear at least a coat when going out, but Nangang Luo left her coat with her and went out in single clothes. Are you stupid? Gongkin Li muttered something, took the coat from the bedside and put it on him. The atmosphere between the two people who suddenly came closer heated up sharply. Nangang Luo took a breath of cold air and said, Hey, it's so cold. Help me put on some clothes. Don't you have hands yourself? Gongkin Li rolled her eyes at him. Nangang Luo deliberately raised his neck and shook his head, for the sake of me running so far in the cold wind early in the morning to buy you breakfast, can you help me once? You don't have to be a fool if you have a ready-made plan to kill me. In one sentence, he listed all the hardships he had to endure to buy breakfast for her. Gongkin Li glared at him, but still waited for him to put on his coat, and deliberately buttoned it up. Gongkin Li knew that Nangang Luo had a habit. He didn't like buttons or zippers when buying coats, because he always disliked that kind of dress and thought it was ugly. So now she deliberately buttoned up all the buttons on his clothes. Nangang Luo didn't say a word, because he suddenly didn't mind buttoning up his buttons now. Not only do I not dislike it, I seem to be very happy. Because Gongkin Li has one more button, he will be one step closer to him. I wish there were 100 more buttons on this dress. You can pull me down. Gongkin slapped him on the chest, glared at him again, and then started to chase people away. You can leave after breakfast. Nangong Luo didn't like hearing this. You don't believe it, I promised Xiao Yuer to guard you. That's because you were the only one around at that time, so Xiao Yuer would call you to stare at me, and I won't cry anymore. Be true to your word. This is my promise to Xiao Yuer. I must stick to it to the end. This is really funny. Yuer asked you to help me and don't make me cry. Just listen. Then yesterday I hurt your daughter with a knife. Why didn't you feel worried at all? Supply and demand management. I don't know how to describe my inner understanding of Nangong Luo. Nangong Luo seems to be very kind to Yuer, but why is he indifferent to his biological daughter? From her perspective, Nangong Luo didn't care about Zhonyun and her daughter, and she seemed to be happy about it. But from another perspective, Nangong Luo is not sad about his biological daughter, so how sincere is he to Yuer? Gongkin Li is struggling with this point. Nangong Luo explained to her again, I said, she is not my daughter. Gongkin Li didn't believe it. Come on, I've prepared another set of excuses. Nangong Luo suddenly grabbed her arm and his expression became serious. Lu Li, please listen carefully to the next words. Nangong Yu, she. Dong dong dong. At this critical moment, MRS Nangong knocked on the door and entered the ward. Nangong Luo hadn't let go of Gongkin Li's hand. MRS Nangong saw this embarrassing scene with her own eyes and didn't know what to say for a moment. It seems that her son is pestering someone else. What should she do? When Gongkin Li noticed MRS Nangong's strange gaze falling on her hand, she quickly shook Nangong Luo away and called out again, Auntie. MRS Nangong said, Lu Li, I'm here to see Yuer. Yuer is still resting. Probably because she had a grudge against Nangong Yu's injury to Xiao Yuer. Gongkin Li and MRS Nangong were not as close as before. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1246. Chapter 1246. It's impossible for you anymore. MRS Nangong brought something up and said, this is the porridge I cooked by myself. It is a light food specially prepared for Xiao Yuer. Thank you, Aunt. You're welcome, it's still our fault. Look, this sentence brings Nangong Yu under the wings of the Nangong family again. Gongkin Li lowered her eyes and chuckled, but the smile was not genuine. She nodded as she accepted MRS Nangong's kindness. MRS Nangong had no intention of leaving. She stood for a while and asked Nangong Luozai to leave. Luo please go out first. I still have a few words to say to Li Yulai. Is there anything I can't hear? What I'm talking about is of course a matter between women. What are you, a grown man, doing here? Okay. Nangong Luo naturally wouldn't care about his mother. After sending Nangong Luo away, MRS Nangong showed a kind smile when facing Gongkin Li. Lu Li, actually I still have a few words to say. Gongkin Li nodded, let's go to the cubicle to talk. In order to avoid disturbing Xiao Yuer's rest, they also went next door. MRS Nangong hesitated for a moment, then slowly said what was in her heart, it is indeed Yuer who did something wrong in this matter. We have educated her, and you have spoken out for Yuer. This kind of thing will not harm anyone if it is revealed. Okay, can you please keep this secret? Hearing MRS Nangong's words, Gongkin Li suddenly understood. MRS Nangong made the food herself early in the morning and sent it not because she felt guilty or concerned about her and Yuer, but because she was moved by her own granddaughter Nangong Yu. The Gong family's strength should not be underestimated. They were afraid that if she told her family about this matter, they would cause trouble for Zhonyun and Nangong Yu. In the final analysis, These are all for selfish reasons. She was an outsider from the beginning to the end. Even the relationship that was once as close as mother and daughter could become so strange and alienated. Gong Qinli directly gave her the answer she wanted. I have no intention of publicizing yours injury everywhere. Mrs. Nangong breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. Li Yulai is still a good and sensible child. No, I'm not a good person, Gong Qinli sneered, and regardless of whether she might offend anyone, she directly said something ugly. Since Auntie is here to intercede for them, please tell Auntie Zhonyun, let them, mother and daughter, remember not to appear in front of me, Gong Qinli. Otherwise, I will beat them every time we see them. As soon as these words came out, Mrs. Nangong's old face couldn't stand up. She knew that Gong Qinli was straightforward and could show her heart to her friends, but she could also be ruthless to her enemies. Lu Li, after all, they are Luo Er's wife and daughter. You used to have a good relationship with Luo Er, so please forgive them just for his sake. What happened in the past is in the past, and do you really hope that the relationship between me and Nangong Luo will remain the same as before? I'm afraid Zhonyun will be so angry that she will jump off her feet. There was a hint of sarcasm in this statement, and everyone could understand it. Lu Li, there was no right or wrong in what happened at the beginning. When things have developed to this point, it is no longer possible for you and Luo Er to be together. As a wife, no one wants to see their husband treat other women well. Zhonyun's the mood is actually understandable. I don't understand, and I don't want to understand. Auntie, I don't want to quarrel because of others before starting the war. Gong Qinli put out the flames in time and changed the target. Also, Nangong Luo doesn't care about Nangong Yu's affairs. Don't you think it's strange? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1247. Chapter 1247. Nangong Yu is Fang Yu's daughter. Nangong Luo doesn't care about Nangong Yu's affairs. Don't you think it's strange? It's not surprising. Mrs. Nangong sighed, and went straight to a showdown with Gong Qinli. Actually, everyone knows that Luo Er doesn't like Zhonyun. Anyone with a little knowledge knows that the person he is really happy with is you. Gong Qinli never expected that she would dig a hole for herself and jump into it. Mrs. Nangong turned around and held her hands, shaking her head meaningfully. To be fair, both Luo Er and the elders of our Nangong family like you more. For a moment, Gong Qinli didn't know how to respond to this sentence. Mrs. Nangong told her true feelings in a serious voice. To be honest, I don't like yours character very much, but she has the blood of our Nangong family, and I have to protect her no matter how bad she is. Many things in the world are not as expected. Even if things have reached this point, they can only go on. Li Yulai, do you understand? Nangong Luo was silent for a while, but still did not change his words. I know what you mean, but I still say, don't mess with me. Don't worry, I will warn Zhonyun and make it clear to her after I go back today. Older gingers are more spicy. Mrs. Nangong promised not to let Zhonyun come to trouble her again, and at the same time, she also reminded her to keep a distance from Nangong Luo. When Mrs. Nangong left the ward, she found Nangong Luo standing guard outside. She wanted to tell Nangong Luo to leave, but Nangong Luo insisted on staying. Mrs. Nangong couldn't force her, she could only remind her, you have to decide what's right for you. Nangong Luo chuckled and replied meaningfully, I know what should be done. What he should do now is to stay by Gong Qinli's side unswervingly, and end the false marriage relationship with Zhonyun as soon as possible. Nangong Luo returned to the room again, and Gong Qinli showed a very unwelcome look. Why are you here again? I promised Xiao Yu that I would accompany you. Excuse. Okay, I promise I'm just using Xiao Yu's name to fulfill my selfish desires. I want to be with you. Gong Qinli resisted the urge to hit him and asked him two questions. Is this what a married man should say? Is cheating so blatant now? Nangong Luo did not show any guilt at all, because he knew that this was not cheating. I haven't finished what I just said. But I don't want to hear it. This is very important, you must know. Gong Qinli directly reached out and covered her ears to express her determination that she was unwilling to listen. This time Nangong Luo did not allow other things to interrupt him. He held Gong Qinli's wrist, approached her, and said clearly in her ear, "Nangong Yu is not my daughter, she is Fang Yu's daughter." Gong Qinli was shocked. She was shocked by the news. She wondered if she was hearing hallucinations. "You are here, what are you talking about?" Fang Yu, who died in the line of duty 4 years ago, was mentioned again, but it was under such circumstances. Nangong Luo's expression is serious and serious. "Nangong Yu is Fang Yu's daughter, and Zhong Yun and I are not husband and wife. The person I like is you, and I have been since a long time ago. Even if you don't like me, I haven't done anything to betray this relationship. So Li Yulai, I still have a chance to protect you." End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1248. Chapter 1248 Confess the Truth. The truth that had been hidden for 4 years was finally revealed, and Nangong Luo was completely relieved. Seeing Gong Qinli's frowning expression in disbelief, Nangong Luo felt relieved. This time he went to great lengths to make his feelings towards Gong Qinli clear, that is, he was determined to have her in this life. But Gong Qinli's mood at the moment was a mess. She pulled Nangong Luo's sleeves and dragged him to the cubicle, asking, "Fang Yu died 4 years ago. How is it possible? Fang Yu died, and Zhong Yun still left a child for him? This is too incredible." Nangong Luo explained calmly, "When Fang Yu died in that robbery, the fatal shot was blocked for me. At that time, Zhong Yun, who was pregnant, begged me to act with her in order to protect the child." Play. What drama? She said she wanted me to have a fake marriage with her. Why? The Zhong family didn't agree with her affair with Fang Yu. When they found out she was pregnant, they forcibly took her to the hospital, where she was almost aborted. Fortunately, I got there in time and saved her. Gong Qinli still vividly remembered the incident 4 years ago. After the turmoil in her heart, she gradually regained her composure, but she couldn't help but feel sour in her heart. "Then you are really a good person." Nangong Luo lowered his eyes and responded to her words, "I am not a good person. If it weren't for you." "Me, what does this have to do with me?" Nangong Luo shook his head. "I was so guilty at the time that I couldn't help begging her to make a 10-month appointment with her." What he said was half true and half false, and he concealed part of the truth. In fact, the main reason at that time was not because of guilt, but because he felt discouraged when he saw the relationship between Gong Qinli and Gu Jinsi growing day by day. He deliberately found something to numb himself, but he didn't expect that it would eventually turn into the current situation. What about after the October appointment? The October agreement should have ended after Zhong Yun gave birth safely, but at that time Zhong Yun changed her mind again. Zhong Yun was weak when she first gave birth to the child. The Nangong family was very excited because of Nangong Yu's birth. Not only was Mrs. Nangong's face full of glory in those days, but the old man's health seemed to be much better. Nangong Luo waited for nearly a month and waited until Zhong Yun had almost recovered before mentioning the truth to her. It was just that Zhong Yun was no longer willing at that time. Zhong Yun pretended to be pitiful and used her children to involve the Nangong family. Of course Nangong Luo was not coaxed by her just like that. At that time, he went abroad to look for Gong Qinli, but the result was not satisfactory. He met Gong Qinli at the place where Gong Qinli had lived for a long time, but at that time, she also had Gu Jinsi with her. That day, he fled back to China in embarrassment, and continued to maintain a cooperative relationship with Zhong Yun in a daze. He regretted it too much. Gong Qinli slowly digested the news. "Well, She felt a little indigestion. I'm a little confused. It doesn't matter, you don't have to worry about these things, I will take care of them. So what you want now is to tell Zhongyun and pursue me. Don't make me want to be disrespectful, I have done my best to Zhongyun. She and her daughter live a worry-free life, and the Zhon family has prospered and reaped a lot of benefits through this relationship. I'm a bit smart, I'll go see you. Gong Qinli stretched out her hand to interrupt him, turned her eyes away to avoid his gaze, and deliberately hid beside her daughter's bed and acted like a turtle. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1249. Chapter 1249. It hurts here. Not hands. She believed what Nangong Luo said because there was no need for Nangong Luo to deceive her. But it was precisely because of these words that she was shaken, and she felt a little uncomfortable inside. Holding her cheeks with both hands and catching a glimpse of her daughter on the bed, she couldn't help but think about. Looking at Mrs. Nangong's partiality towards Nangong Yu, I heard Nangong Luo say that the Nangong family cares about their granddaughter. If Nangong Luo makes the matter clear, can the Nangong family accept the blow of losing their granddaughter? This was not a loss that she should have considered, but even though she could hide it from others, she could not let herself forget that Nangong Luo's blood was still flowing in her daughter's body. Gong Qinli stood by the bed, staring at her daughter in trance. Nangong Luo stood at the door and stared at her in trance. Xiao Yu'er slowly opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was a reassuringly familiar face. She called out, "Mommy." Gong Qinli quickly woke up from her fugue. "Yu'er, are you awake? Are you feeling uncomfortable?" She looked at her daughter carefully, and she expressed concern for her daughter every time she opened or closed her mouth. Nangong Luo, who was watching the whole process, suddenly felt a little bit disgusted. It is true that he likes Xiao Yu'er very much, but every time he sees Gong Qinli's meticulous care for Xiao Yu'er, he will remember the man who once got Gong Qinli. He thought to himself, if he were allowed to see that man, he might be tempted to kill. But reality told him that that was impossible. Nangong Luo's main thing now is to compete for performance in front of Gong Qinli. Before Gong Qinli could react, he lifted the thermos bucket containing rice porridge on the table to the bedside and deliberately sat down opposite Gong Qinli. "Xiao Yu'er, are you hungry after sleeping for so long? Uncle, there is porridge here, do you want to try it?" Nangong Luo raised the thermos bucket in his hand. Xiao Yu'er blinked. She first asked Gong Qinli with her expression. When Gong Qinli nodded, she smiled at Nangong Luo and happily accepted the food. Nangong Luo is really curious. How could someone as careless as Gong Qinli, who couldn't even take care of himself, raise such a considerate, sensible, and sweet daughter? "Lu Li, Xiao Yu'er listens to you too much." Of course, Yu'er is my daughter. Gong Qinli felt proud when she mentioned her daughter. She was even more happy when she heard other people's praises for her daughter. Nangong Luo opened the lid for her and filled half of it in a small bowl. He held a small bowl in one hand and a spoon in the other hand to scoop out a spoonful of rice porridge and handed it over. Xiao Yu'er opened her mouth and swallowed it, chewing it slowly. After swallowing this mouthful, Xiao Yu'er said, "Uncle, Yu'er can eat by herself. Xiao Yu'er is a patient now. You should have a good rest. You don't have to do anything. Uncle can just feed you." Xiao Yu'er pointed to her head, "It hurts here, not my hand." The main point for Xiao Yu'er is to show that her hands are healthy and she can eat by herself. It was just these words that made the two adults guarding her feel very pity, because they were more focused on Xiao Yu'er's wounds. Nangong Luo insisted on feeding him, so Xiao Yu'er felt free to enjoy the service. With a short manner, eating a soft mouth, Xiao Yu'er couldn't touch the mouth, Mommy, my uncle said she wants to protect you. Well, because we are friends, and friends protect each other. That's not right. What's wrong? Uncle said he wants to be yours daddy. Cough cough cough. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lou Kixie. Chapter 1250. Chapter 1250. Put her in a room and don't allow her to eat. Uncle said he wants to be yours daddy. Ahem, cough. Gongkin Li really didn't expect Nangong Luo to directly express his position in front of Xiao Yuer. Why are you so surprised? Yuer is just telling the truth. Nangong Luo took the opportunity to agree and gave Xiao Yuer a look of thanks. Xiao Yuer interacted with him with expressions. Although they were so many years apart, they seemed to be able to communicate easily, or they had a spiritual connection. Gongkin Li sighed silently in her heart. The blood relationship is really wonderful. There were people who were courteous to her in the past, and even deliberately tried to please Xiao Yuer in order to pursue her. Xiao Yuer's mental age is hardly like 3 years old. She is polite to everyone, but she has never deliberately set herself up with anyone else. This time it seems that he is very satisfied with Nangong Luo, and he even deliberately spoke for him just now. Gongkin Li, who knew this, deliberately provoked him. Tell the truth. Did you teach my daughter bad things on purpose? How can you say it's bad teaching? I'm very kind to Xiao Yuer, right? The first half of the sentence was addressed to Gongkin Li, and the last 2 words were deliberately asked by him to Xiao Yuer. Xiao Yuer nodded, with a smile in her eyes, as if there were countless twinkling stars hidden in her eyes. Xiao Yuer was recuperating at home for 2 days, and Gongkin Li's phone was almost buzzing with calls. On one hand, the parents of the Gong family miss their granddaughter. On the other hand, the brothers and sisters of the Ye family want to play with Xiao Yuer, and on the other hand, Mr. Nangong is bedridden. Mr. Nangong was used to waiting for his granddaughter to come here every day to tell him stories or share interesting things he encountered during the day, but after not seeing anyone for several days, the old man, whose memory was confused, was very worried. When Mrs. Nangong came to visit him, he even kept asking, "Why haven't I seen Li Yulai and Yuer in the past few days?" Mrs. Nangong naturally did not dare to tell the truth, so she could only comfort him with lies. Li Yulai and Luo are too busy and have no time to bring Xiao Yuer over. The old man wishes the children well. Hearing that they are busy with work, he is too embarrassed to disturb them. Mrs. Nangong returned home and was deeply worried. A loud noise at home startled Mrs. Nangong to wake up instantly. She looked left and right, and suddenly heard the servant's voice, "Little miss, put your things down quickly. That is the gift that the young lady found specially for you." Huh. You can't control it, Nangong. You didn't listen to the servant's advice and stopped him, and threw the hourglass ornament in his hand to the ground without hesitation. Mrs. Nangong ran up to her with a puzzled look on her face. "What's going on?" When the servant saw her, it was as if he had seen a savior. "Madam, the young lady promised to take the young lady out to play, but she broke the agreement because of something unexpected. The young lady was so angry that she smashed the gift that the young lady had given her. She smashed it out of anger. Nangong Yu likes to do things when she's angry, and she won't give face to anyone who gives her gifts, so what she did just now was to vent her anger to her mother." After hearing the whole story, Mrs. Nangong shook her head repeatedly. "You did evil, you did evil." She sighed deeply and no longer knew what to do to teach Nangong Yu well. "Lock the little lady to her room and don't allow her to eat tonight." As soon as Nangong Yu heard this, he turned around and ran away. Mrs. Nangong winked at the servants, and the servants quickly caught up and brought Nangong Yu back. Nangong Yu kept struggling and yelling, "Grandma, I want to eat." Mrs. Nangong made up her mind, lock her inside, and she won't be allowed to open the door no matter what she throws at her. A servant standing behind quickly contacted Zhong Yun. End of this chapter.